Ladies and gentlemen, I have a form spring. I recommend you go and send me questions. If you don't, I will murder you. But on to the main part of the video. Lucid LJ sent me a roster challenge. Now, I usually don't do booking challenges, so Double Cross King, I won't be doing yours, so you can go fuck yourself. But I will be doing the roster challenge that Lucid LJ sent me, because one, I don't like doing booking challenges. I always overthink things. I think, how are the fans going to react to that? How will they react to this? And plus, sometimes I just don't have enough knowledge of what was going on at the time to really put things together. So you always got to think about backstage stuff and what was going on. It's easy to, what do you call it in the US? Armchair quarterback or coach or some shit. I don't know. I'm not a sports guy, really. Well, not American sports anyway. But yes, the challenge was, you have the WWE's roster, or you pick one guy from WWE's roster starting 1985 and to 2010 from each year, one guy from each year. So 1985 you'd pick a guy, 1986 you'd pick a guy. So I did that, and I picked all the people I wanted on my roster, and I decided that's not good. Went through it again, picked a roster I would be happy with, that I could do things with, that I could mold, I could, put great matches together. It's quite different from everybody else's. A lot of people just chose the biggest stars, and I thought, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something a bit like, there are big stars on mine, and there are great workers on mine, but I also chose guys who you typically that typically weren't picked from other people. And the reason for that was I wanted a lot of variety in the roster. I didn't want too much of the same thing. Though in some cases I might have a bit much of some things, but bear with me. Let's just go straight into it. 1985, the Dynamite Kid. I feel this was when he was at the peak of his career, or before he was beginning to go down the downward spiral of injecting too much steroids into his ass, and he was a great worker. 1986, Terry Funk. Terry Funk, one of the biggest names in wrestling. Look at everything he has done for all the companies he's been in, ECW, the NWA, and even his short stints in the WWE. The man's a legend. Great on the mic, great in the ring, willing to do a lot of stuff, and willing to put young guys over. Though there's not many, you get the idea. 1987, Ricky Steamboat. Yay, we all know why. Great worker. I didn't pick him for his mic work, despite what the Dragon DVD will tell you. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat DVD. I'm watching it right now, and they're like, I've already seen the documentary, and they're like, he was great on the mic. No, he wasn't. And they're talking about his gimmicks, and they're like, oh, his gimmick was great. No, it wasn't. They were rubbish. They were stupid. They made him look like a fucking retard, and it seemed like racial stereotyping. But whatever, it was the 80s. So, 1987, Ricky Steamboat. 1988, Jake the Snake Roberts. One of my favourite wrestlers, and I always felt he could... It was a crime that he was never really put into the main event scene. More so than he was, I suppose you'd say. But yeah, Jake Roberts. I love him. I really do. I think his stuff from the late 80s was great. And I couldn't envision a dream roster without Jake the Snake on it. 1989, another guy I really couldn't envision having a roster without him on it, and that's Ted DiBiase. Ted DiBiase Sr. He was a real wrestler's wrestler. He was a big guy, but he'd wrestled in the territory system. He'd been all over the world, been to Japan, and he really knew his stuff, and he was good on the mic, and he had a really good voice, very deep, and his laugh was amazing. So Ted DiBiase, the things I could do with him and all these other guys I've got on there, it would just be great with his obnoxious heel, rich snob bastard gimmick. 1990, Bret Hart, historically one of the best technical wrestlers. Easy. 1991, Ric Flair. Oh, I've got a roster with Ric Flair, Ted DiBiase, Ricky Steamboat, Terry Funk. Think of the matches. And even Jake Roberts. And even Dynamite Kid. You could do a lot of shit with that. 1992, British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. I felt he could have been one of the biggest stars in wrestling, and just never did for various reasons. But the early 90s were really his time to shine. So it's unfortunate he was never given the title, because I felt if you didn't give him the title in the early 90s, anything after that would have just been pointless, because he just was never as over as he was then, early to mid-90s. 1993, Mr. Perfect. Great on the mic, great in the ring. got a good gimmick that I could really work with a lot of these other guys on the roster. 1994, Shawn Michaels. Do we need to say anything about that? I don't think so. Before he had a wonky back too. 1995, Jeff Jarrett. This might take a bit more explaining. 1995, I picked Jeff Jarrett because I felt he could have been a main eventer. He was great in the ring. He was pretty damn good on the mic. I felt he was underrated on the mic and underrated in the ring. And the reason why he was never really elevated to a main eventer in the WWE or WWF at the time was because he was jumping and changing around too much. He'd go into WCW, coming back. That and just, he was in a bad, the WWF or WWE in a bad time. And then when he came back, there was no place for him. So that was unfortunate. 1996, Vader, well past his prime of the late 80s, early 90s. But he did have a second wind in the early noughties, I would say, or late 90s, early noughties. But he wasn't quite as good as he was in 1996, in the early 90s as he was in 1996. But I picked him because I felt you need a really fucking intimidating monster who you believe could murder people. And I felt he could murder people. I believed when I was younger he could murder people. 1997, Brian Pillman, one of the guys who helped spark the Attitude Era. He was fantastic on the mic. At 1997, he wasn't the best worker because he had to have his ankle fused, but I still feel there will be tons of stuff you could do with him. So yeah, that's why I chose him. 1998, Steve Austin. Woo! I'm not going to explain it. You know why. 1999, The Undertaker. Really don't need to explain it. I pretty much chose him for his star power, and at the time, I felt he was just at the peak of, overness in my mind, at least. Overness, is that a word? I don't think so. 2000, quite an odd choice. Taka Michinoku. Nearly gave it away before I finished his name. But Taka Michinoku, he was traditionally treated as a jobber. But I would say, in terms of a small guy in the WWE, I don't think they've had anyone better who's been wrestling for them on who had been wrestling for them on a regular basis. I think he was better than Rey Mysterio. And if you watch his Japanese work, it's clear. And even his WWE work, where he wrestled 2, 3, 4 minute matches, were the best really short matches you'd see. He was just fantastic and was just terribly mistreated by the administration there. But I digress. 2001, The Rock. I felt that 2001 were probably his best years. 2002, Kurt Angle, not quite his best year, but almost there, and crazy good at the time still. Definitely. 2003, Chris Jericho. Woo! Not quite the intimidating heel he is now, but still fantastic, and I wouldn't have a roster without him. 2004, He Who Shall Not Be Named, Crispy Benoit. The guy who went and murdered his family. I chose him, hoping that on my roster he wouldn't go and murder his family and then himself. I hope you're not offended by that, people who are watching, but yeah, he did it. But 2004 I felt was his best year in the WWE. 2005, Eddie Guerrero. Don't need to say much about it. He's just total package despite his size, but a lot of great guys he could have worked with on my roster already. 2006, Edge. Yay! I always liked Edge. Though at this point when I picked Edge, I'm like, my roster's looking a bit darker. But I felt Edge, great guy, great heel. Way better as a heel than he is a face. And 2006 really was his year, I felt. 2006, 2007. 2007, though, I picked Elijah Burke. Even at the time, I'm like, he's got a lot of potential. And as we see now, he does have a lot of potential. I mean, he's probably got the most potential to be a big star in TNA, or more potential than just about anybody there. Even Nigel. Blasphemer! 2008, CM Punk. I'm a mark for CM Punk, I won't deny it, but yeah, we know why I picked him. Good in the ring, great on the mic, most over heel. Well, maybe not in 2008, but yeah. 2009, Tyson Kidd. Pretty much purely a work rate reason, and because I see so much potential in him. And Dynamite Kid's on the roster, and so is Chris Benoit. Put him in the ring with those two, see what happens. And my last pick, same reason as Tyson Kidd, is Bryan Danielson, or Daniel Bryanson, or whatever the fuck you call him these days. Damn the WWE. But yes, him. also, work rate reason. And plus, I think he's terribly underrated on the mic. A lot of people on the internet like to say, oh, but he's got no charisma, he's boring. Yeah, I know Michael Cole says it, but other people say it who just don't know what they're talking about, who haven't actually watched him in Ring of Honor and seen the greatness that is he. So there's my roster, and I think I deserve to win. So, List LJ, plug me and declare me the winner because I am, and I'm awesome, and I'm probably the greatest guy on YouTube. I'm a god of YouTube. You should all be bowing down before me. I'm stuttering a lot for a god. I'm still omniscient. Do as I tell you, or I'll mind murder your family. Because I can do that. Bye.